Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Video Analytics 101. We are doing this interview series once per month as a LinkedIn Live, where we are talking to industry leaders about interesting topics that are usually not discussed in usual webinars and try to get to the bottom of things. Last month, we actually talked to the chairman of the technical committee of ONVIF to talk about ONVIF Profile M. So, in case you missed it, it was super interesting. You can still head over to YouTube to the Video Analytics 101 channel and check it out there. While you're there, of course, please subscribe and sign up. And just a reminder, the podcast is now also available as audio only on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify, so you can listen to it on the road. But today we are talking about forensic search and edge analytics. Those are super hot topics right now. And I'm very happy to have here with me today Aaron Sachs. Aaron is a senior product manager as well as a training manager over at Hanwha Techwin. So welcome, Aaron.
Hi there. Thank you.
So it's super cool to have you here. Maybe before we start off, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page what forensic search and edge analytics means. So when we talk about forensic search, what we mean is the ability to search through the video based on certain criteria. So basically, search for the guy in the red shirt. And this is becoming more and more interesting because customers are trying to manage all this kind of data and all the videos that they have. So they are searching for ways to search through the video. So this is what we mean by forensic search. And edge analytics can be actually multiple things because there are also solutions with boxes that you put there in the field behind the camera. It's also called edge analytics. But today we're focusing about AI and video analytics on cameras themselves. So it's really about running analytics inside of the camera. And there's a good reason actually why we invited Hanwha here today, because 2021 was really a year of the AI camera. There were so many new offerings, so many new cameras, and pretty cool features. But Hanwha was actually one of the first ones to bring out an AI camera last year in 2020. And they were the first ones to release a dedicated forensic search plugin for Security Center that enables so much more features. And this is what we want to talk about today. But to start us off, maybe Aaron, can you explain to us what Hanwha cameras are capable of in terms of video analytics in general before we go into the plugin?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've got our new AI camera here. We've got different form factors, obviously indoor, outdoor, box, bullet, and it follows a similar form factor to our other cameras. So modular form factor, easy to install, easy to upgrade from a previous camera. Really, the main new component is updating the CPU, the processor. So it's got an AI chipset in it. So the processing is done on the camera, license-free video analytics. So we don't need any additional hardware or software to process that. We don't need to send it to the cloud. And what we're doing is really two things. We are doing a suite of analytics, which we've had for many years, but we're using that AI chipset for false alarm reduction. So the camera can detect certain types of objects, and we'll talk more about that in the forensic search in a couple minutes. But the camera is looking for specifically people and faces, vehicles, and license plates. And so what that does is it eliminates the false positives. So if your VMS, if Genetec is set to record on an analytic or do an event, you're not having constant pop-ups from trees blowing in the wind, shadows, sunlight changes, cats and dogs walking, moving by. If I'm looking specifically for people and I don't want to know when a car drives by, that's one of the most important pieces. The second part is the types of analytics. So our cameras can do things like just notifying, hey, there's a person. Should there not be a person here? Person or vehicle. We can do things like for COVID now, face mask detection, social distancing detection, along with our traditional analytics of directional detection, enter, exit, loitering, things like that. So we have the ability to also fine tune it and say which one of those objects or more objects. So I might say if someone is loitering in the area, I want to be notified. That could also be applied to a vehicle and say, hey, if a vehicle is in a certain zone, let me know. And we can configure that all in the camera in terms of how long to wait, what type of object, the regions, the zone, sensitivity, minimum, maximum sizes, all that type of thing. But really fine tuning it for specific types of objects, we'll say.
And let me just add there that, of course, all these kinds of events are integrated into Security Center as well. So whatever you configure there, the event is coming in into Security Center, mostly as a native event that you can use there.
Right, and
Um,
and
yep,
I think one of the biggest pieces of the reason why we're here, right, is, we've got a deep integration with our API. We call it SoonAppy, but allows us to transmit that all of those types of analytics right into Security Center, so that way you can then take an action from there. Yep.
right, exactly. And um, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the forensic search plugin. Can you tell us a little bit about what you can do with it? What is the functionality and so on?
Yeah, so the limitation previously, and different VMSs work differently. Obviously, Genetech has a whole suite of how to search, but the historic uh, pain point of a lot of end users is something happened last night. I need to now search through hours of video, and there's some great tools to speed that up. But what we're talking about here now is a plugin that Hanwha developed for Genetech, for Security Center, to fully harness the camera. And what it does is it gives you a new dashboard where you have a pick list on the left hand side, and you can select which type of object do I want. Do I want to see people, faces, vehicle, license plate? Um, do I want to look for specific color clothing? So if I know they're wearing a black shirt or blue pants, were they carrying a bag? Were they wearing glasses? Did they have a face mask? Vehicle type. We have classifications. Was it a car? Was it a truck? Was it a bus, bicycle, motorcycle, things like that, and vehicle color as well. So it allows me to fine tune what I'm looking for based on the type of search I'm doing. Um, we hit search, and then in seconds we get a resulting screen, because Genetech has taken the metadata. Our camera is processing live all that data coming in, figuring out the colors and the vehicle type, all of that. And then Genetech stores that on the archiver as metadata, so it can filter that really, really quickly. And then the other piece the plugin does is it gives us a thumbnail. We call it best shot. And best shot on the camera, when the camera detects an object, a person, let's say, it's able to find the best snapshot of that person over a couple frames, and it sends that with the metadata. And so when I do a search, if I've got a big wide angle field of view, I don't want to have to squint or zoom in. It's going to zoom in right to that object. So my search results are going to be the screen of just all my little objects that I can very easily see, and then you can click right on it and get right to your playback to see, is that the person, and not have to scrub through hours of video.
What what I find cool as well is at Genetech we always talk about unification, and what we mean by that is that you don't have to switch context. You basically have your access control, your license plate, your video management into one user interface, one pane of glass essentially. And even though this plugin is developed by another vendor like Hanwha, it really gives the operator a unified experience
Yes.
because this is a separate task. You just start a task, have your forensic search, and it's all inside of your security desk. So it's super easy to use. That's actually cool. And maybe let's talk a little bit about more the architectural side of things. All this analytics is running in the camera, right? So it doesn't have to be processed on the server by itself.
Correct, right. So it's all on the camera. It's all built in, license free, ready to go. Um, we've got some videos on our YouTube channel. They take only a couple seconds to enable. Previous analytics took more time to tweak it, to get your sizes and sensitivity right, because of false positives. Whereas here, it's a lot simpler because it's looking for those types of objects. So we can figure those analytics on the camera side very easily. You can choose one or more analytics. You can draw your zones. If you just want the forensic search, that's also very easy to do. You just click a couple check boxes to enable it. Like you said, the camera is then doing all the work, all the processing. It sends it back to Genetech. And then I don't know if you want to talk about the plugin. There's two components to the plugin. There's the plugin for the archiver, and then there's a plugin for the client, for the workstation.
Right. Yes. So basically, it's split into two parts. Maybe it's also interesting to add from a Genetech perspective that the way we store things is we call it the fusion stream, which is essentially one stream with multiple streams inside it. So you could
Mhm.
have your main video stream, you could have a secondary video stream, you could have an audio stream, and you also have a metadata stream. And this is where the metadata of the Hanwha camera goes in, and what the plugin then leverages to basically present it to the user. So it's a very it's actually a good example of a hybrid video analytics system
Yeah.
because you have the analytics on the edge and you have a server component that leverages these analytics and presents it to the user.
Yeah, and the metadata stream, like you said, is really important because what we're seeing is there's a lot of VMSs that don't have that backend database side. They're not ready for it. So if the camera is creating all this metadata and you can't ingest it and do anything with it, you then can't do your forensic search. You can't do anything. So that's where Gentek's been a great partner and has been ready for that. Um, and when you see a demo of that search, and you might be searching a day, it might be a month looking for a certain color clothing or a vehicle, and the fact that you can do it so quickly and effortlessly is really great.
And actually, it's a little bit a different use case than what analytics used to be and still are, because traditionally you were configuring a rule, for example, cross-line detection that triggers an event, which is great and still very, very useful. But with forensic search, you do not need to know what you're looking for at the time when you configure it. It's really when there's an incident, you can go in and search for the guy in the red shirt with yellow pants because it's a fashion crime, and to find the guy. And you don't need to define it when you configure the system. So that's pretty cool. It's a little bit of a shift in concept there.
Yeah, and it's really trying to increase operator efficiency, and you might have operators who aren't as used to using this type of equipment. With COVID, we saw different people doing different things differently. Um, But right, exactly right. This is forensic search after the fact, and not having to pre-configure, like you said, very specific rules of what you're looking for. Um, People often thought of analytics of, oh, I want to be notified when this happens, and this is completely a complete shift to it. But having cameras and an architecture that allows you to do both components, yeah.
Yeah. I just noticed, I think one of the big things for GSX was that it's supported now with the WiseNet series, right? Which is the basically the broad range of cameras of Hanwha.
Yeah, so what we had launched this our AI platform on our WiseNet P series, which has all the analytics, all the features, the metadata. And then the big announcement at GSX was our WiseNet X series has we've added in the AI component, added in a processor for AI, specifically for the false alarm reduction. So creating those rules to be able to pop it up on your VMS, to be able to use the line crossing, loitering, things like that. And it'll have the best shot as well, so you can easily search and get those thumbnails. The big differentiator between our X and P series is our X series does not have the metadata. So you're not going to be able to say, show me someone with a blue shirt. You're going to be able to say, show me when there was a person or a vehicle. And actually, there's the vehicle classification of show me a car or a bus. Um, but for our lineup, if you want to do the full forensic search with the plugin to be able to search on clothing color, vehicle color, that's where our P series will still continue to have that.
Okay. And how complicated is it to set up? So I guess you have to go in the camera configuration and do something there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really uh, to get the forensic search piece working. It's really one menu. It's in the camera webpage, like you mentioned. We have a responsive web user interface, no plugin, so it'll work on any platform. It's easy to use. And you just need to enable the AI function, and you tell it what type of objects you want to see, right? So if this is a parking garage, maybe I only care about cars. I can just check the box for cars or vehicles. If I want to search for people and vehicles, you just check both boxes.
Mhm.
And then that's one step. Again, it's really simple. The second step is our best shot. Again, that's that snapshot that will then kind of crop your thumbnails for the forensic search in the plugin. And same thing, you just need to check a box for which object types you want. And that's it. Everything else then is done for you on the camera side to get the plugin, the forensic search, the metadata coming in. If you,
Sorry.
okay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to address here because we have a very fitting comment by Yuri asking about best practices, how to deploy it in big projects. So, what are advantages and disadvantages? Maybe that fits here. That you explain a little bit how to set it
Yeah.
up.
So, and I see the question here is talking about SSM specifically. SSM is a Hanwha CMS type software. We don't use it in every region of the world. Here in Hanwha Techwin America, we're not really using that anymore. Best practice is when we go to large systems, enterprise systems. That's where we go to partners like Genetec. Um, Genetec, like I said, has our API. They reach out to our cameras. They do a communication back and forth to discover the capabilities of the camera, including the AI features, and they can then create the profiles in the camera and get the best performance out of them. For big projects, that's where you can have multiple archivers. You can build this bigger infrastructure. Um, Typically, Hanwha does have a tool that we use for deploying a system. It's called the WiseNet Device Manager, and that's what you can use for configuring IP addresses, passwords, bulk changes to any configuration you need. That's done on beforehand during staging, and then we hand it over to Genetec. We do the enrollment, we add the cameras in, and it's pretty simple. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And best practices besides that is, we've adopted the secure by default design principle. So, we don't have lots of extra protocols running that you have to turn off. Cybersecurity obviously is really important for both of our companies. We do have some recommendations, but the majority out of the box is configuring that password, using a strong password, and a couple other minor things. But most of those can be done in batch using our tool, and just following again best practices that Hanwha and Genentech have published for having trusted devices on your network.
Mhm. Okay, cool. Well, I can also say from Genetec side that there's a lot of resources out there for best practices, and every project, of course, is different. And of course, we both have teams that support our partners in planning such a thing. So definitely a lot of resources out there. Um,
One other thing I
Maybe,
just wanted to
yeah.
mention is, when we first launched our AI lineup, it was our 4K camera. And obviously, having large numbers of AI cameras or large numbers of 4K, uses a lot of bandwidth, and that's where the Genetech team can help size a system. How many archivers you need, and can really grow to any size system. We also have our 8K camera. That's actually an AI camera that can create the attributes and bring it into the plugin. But then this past year, we've also released some 2 megapixel, some lower resolution, as well as on their X series, a whole range of 2 meg, 4 meg, 6 meg, 4K. So really now we have the ability to do a full system. Are people going to go out and put AI cameras everywhere? Usually not, but now that we have different price points and different tiers, people certainly can do that and start to really leverage these functions on their full end-to-end VMS
I,
using
I
Genetech.
I find it exciting that the X series supports it now as well, even though not all the features are supported. But it shows that this is becoming more and more well, it's appealing to a wider range of users, and
Yeah,
more users can leverage these kinds of functionality, which is pretty cool. And because at one point in the future, it will be everywhere.
right. And
Depends
yeah,
on how
that's
fast we go.
Yeah, that's what we saw this past year or two was AI flooding the market of everything from camera, VMS, cloud. Everywhere is saying, "Oh, hey, we're doing AI." That's the big topic. What we're going to start seeing moving forward these next 2 or 3 years is it's going to start filtering down to everything, to more price points, to all over the place.
Yeah. So maybe talking about the future, where do you think this is all going? Will cameras have more and more of these kind of features? Is there more to grow essentially? And where do you see the role of a VMS and camera and maybe also cloud?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, having AI on the camera really adds a lot of benefits because we don't, like you said at the beginning, we don't have to send to the cloud. We don't have to continuously use a ton of bandwidth for that processing. There are some big data applications where people do want that cloud to really look at the bigger picture thing there. But again, the future I see is AI going deeper, going into more lineups, to more price points, being able to be kind of ubiquitous everywhere. The other piece is, um, we're starting to see a second generation of AI products on the market now, where AI was used initially for detecting that object, detecting that it's a person, detecting an unusual activity, line crossing, loitering. Where we're moving now is improving the camera's performance, um, where it can detect, hey, that's a person. Let me improve my bandwidth usage. Let me improve my shutter speed. Let me improve my day night performance. Let me improve, refine the camera's settings, the configuration on the fly based on what I'm looking for. I'm a camera that's looking for vehicles. Great, let's adjust the settings dynamically because, oh, there's a vehicle in the scene or there's a person
Mhm.
in the scene. So we're seeing a lot of really taking AI to the next step of internally doing more to the camera. Um, where I see, a lot of cloud systems have been talking about the past 5 years of, natural language search and being able to just, search across large numbers of cameras. And I think, that's where on the VMS side, we're going to start seeing, right now we're focusing on the plugin. The plugin is great for that forensic search. Um, I think we'll start seeing this data start creeping out more holistically into the whole VMS of being able to do these general searches or optimizing things and uh, being able to just have that data accessible in more places to more people.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I think it's without a question that AI and video analytics will be used more and more really at the core of the functionality of VMSs, where a lot of things will be driven by this that might not even be obviously obvious to people that it is video analytics, but it is data that's derived from there. So, and from an architectural point of view, I really think it's hybrid. There will be a lot on the cameras, and cameras will improve greatly. And I think we will see functionality where VMSs are taking this data and combining it, bring it to the next level, maybe do additional analytics, maybe in the cloud. So really think that from an architectural point of view, the future is hybrid, where we combine all the different kind of things.
yeah. Another interesting aspect. Someone asked about the future, and so some of our cameras today, our AI cameras that we're talking about, have some additional business intelligence as well. Business intelligence, people want to do things like people counting, queue management, heat map. And there's always been limitations with that. With AI, because it's an intelligent camera that can say that's a person, we're getting fewer false alarms. We're able to now use the cameras in better locations. We're not needing a purpose built dedicated camera. And I think the future, we're going to see VMSs and other platforms being able to better use that data. Right now, it's typically, it's a web page in the camera, it's a report that gets emailed, it's a CSV. I think a lot of that will be able to um, be better available and aggregating that data in other places as well. Yeah.
So I think in general, we all need to do to spend more time in trying to make the information that we generate with video analytics more available and more useful to end users. For such a long time, it has been more of a trade show thing, video analytics, to say, hey, this is cool. But now we're really entering a time where it has to drive business value, and that's where we will see a lot of development, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We've had trade shows where you're going to tailor make the camera, the angle, the height, all of that, and look, it works. As an example, I had an integrator who put in a system last week, um, for a public location where they wanted to use people counting. They wanted to use that business analytics, and they used the AI camera. They told it, "I'm looking for people." And yeah, they had people entering this facility. They give their ticket. They go through, and people aren't just single file. They're going through multiple people at a time. There's people in strollers, and the camera was counting all those people, and it's doing what they wanted in a real life environment, which often is challenging lighting, challenging angles, all of that. So it's really exciting seeing AI finally coming to fruition and in a usable and affordable option.
Yeah. Um, Usually we try to keep these to 15 minutes, so we already overshot by 10 minutes. There are a lot of other things to discuss. I also see a lot of comments, so maybe later on you can also reply to
Yep.
them in writing. But let's leave it for here right now. I do want to mention that if you want to see more the plugin in action, how it works with the Hanwha camera, Phil Coppola, who does the podcast, The Inside Tracker over at YouTube, did actually an hours long video about this, how to set it up exactly, how does it work, what you have to do. So that's
Yep.
super nice. So check it out. I think we'll post a link in YouTube. And I also have it in good authority that he's working on an update with the latest version. So you can look out for that. Otherwise, that's it for today. Please subscribe to the podcast, Video Analytics 101, if you haven't done so. As I mentioned, we do this once per month. Next month would be about AI chipsets and what challenges are there. So this will be super exciting. So watch out for that. For now, thank you, Aaron. Thank you for coming. It was very interesting. And I think we could have talked for another hour, but we try to keep this short. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and see you next time.
Great. Thank you.